Before any words are spoken, before a glance turns into conversation, before your name is even known, your energy has already spoken for you. This is the realm where communication transcends speech, and women, in particular, are deeply attuned to this subtle frequency. They may not consciously label it as a spiritual energy or a life force, but they can sense when a man carries something rare, something still, something fully inhabited. At the root of this energy is presence, not just being in a room, but fully being. Not distracted, not anxious, not searching for approval, just being. It is the way you hold your body, the steadiness of your eyes, the timing of your breath, the silence between your words. All of these transmit a signal to the unconscious mind. That signal says one of two things. Either this man is in control of himself, or this man is being controlled by something else. Semen retention plays a key role here, not merely as a physical practice, but as a spiritual recalibration. When you hold your seed, you're holding on to a deeper part of yourself. You're refusing to leak out your most vital force for fleeting moments of pleasure. And in doing so, you begin to radiate a different kind of signal, one rooted in discipline, restraint, and a quiet intensity that does not beg for attention but commands respect. This quiet power becomes visible, formless but as a presence, You may not speak a word, but your aura carries an unshakable calm. This is not about becoming hypermasculine or emotionally closed. It is about becoming energetically whole, and women are naturally drawn to wholeness. They seek it not out of dependency, but because it provides a contrast to their own dynamic emotional flow. Your groundedness gives them space to expand. When a man is scattered, addicted to instant gratification, constantly chasing stimulation, his energy becomes fragmented. Even if he appears confident on the surface, something in his field feels unstable. Women pick up on this discrepancy, sometimes consciously, but more often through instinct. They may feel unsettled around him, disinterested, or simply uninspired. On the other hand, when a man contains his energy, his movements slow down, his presence deepens, and his spirit sharpens. He begins to carry a frequency that the feminine can feel like heat in the room. It's not about being aggressive or dominant, it's about being energetically aligned. Alignment has a vibration. Women sense when you are not seeking something outside yourself, when your validation is not up for negotiation. They can feel when you are not trying to take, but rather radiating from a full cup, and that changes everything. You stop being just another man seeking attention and start becoming a pole of attraction, still powerful and sovereign. From this place, you no longer need to impress. The need to outperform fades. Your gaze becomes cleaner, not hungry. Your body language relaxes, not collapses. You are not pushing or pulling, you are simply there, fully. The retained energy within you amplifies your electromagnetic field. Yes, even scientifically speaking, but more importantly, it sharpens your spiritual clarity, and clarity is seductive in a world ruled by confusion. There is an archetypal memory, a deep feminine recognition of the man who has mastered himself, not just his mind, but his desire. Women sense that man, often before they even understand why. They lean toward his stillness, trust his presence, feel safer in his orbit. Not because he's trying to make them feel safe, but because he is safe in his body, in his purpose, in his silence. This is the invisible realm of attraction, the part that dating tips can't teach and fashion can't manufacture. It's the energy that lingers in a room after you've walked out. The calm intensity that makes eye contact unnecessary, but unforgettable. It's what women feel when they meet a man who doesn't need, because he already is. The magnetism of self-containment. There is a silent power in a man who does not chase, not because he is indifferent, but because he is full of energy, full of intention, and full of direction. This fullness is not born from ego or arrogance. It is born from self-containment. And the core of this containment is your sexual energy, the most potent expression of your life force. When a man begins the practice of semen retention, he is not just restraining an urge, he is reclaiming his essence. In a world saturated with overstimulation and instant gratification, the modern male is often energetically drained. His power is spilled in secret, scattered across screens, fantasies, and meaningless encounters. Every time he gives away his seed without sacred purpose, he is also giving away a piece of his magnetism. Over time, this depletion is not just physical, it becomes spiritual. The spark behind his eyes dims, his voice loses depth, his presence becomes forgettable. And yet, he wonders why he isn't felt, why women don't respond to him, why opportunities seem just out of reach. But when a man chooses to contain himself, to transmute rather than release, a transformation begins. His body starts to radiate a new frequency, one of vitality, restraint, and raw potential. This energy collects and condenses within him, like a magnetic core forming at his center. Women, even if they cannot name it, are drawn to this. They feel the difference between a man who seeks pleasure to escape himself and a man who holds his pleasure to build himself. Self-containment makes you rare. In a culture of indulgence, discipline stands out. The man who can look desire in the eye and not be enslaved by it holds a different kind of power. He is not repressing his nature, he is owning it. There is no desperation in his touch, no neediness in his gaze. His energy doesn't lunge, it attracts. It attracts. He becomes less about the chase and more about the pull. And women respond not to what he says, but to what he withholds, not as manipulation, but as mastery. This is not celibacy for moral reasons. This is containment for spiritual expansion. The sexual energy that once left him hollow now begins to feed him. His skin becomes more vibrant, his posture more rooted, his eyes more focused. The world feels him differently because he feels himself differently. He is no longer fractured. He is forged. The pressure he once ran from becomes the furnace in which his will is strengthened. His masculinity no longer relies on performance but presence, and this presence creates polarity. Feminine energy by nature flows. It dances, it shifts, it seeks to be held without being caged. The self-contained man becomes the structure that invites that flow. He is the calm center to her storm, the grounding force that doesn't suppress but supports. His containment doesn't stifle, it liberates. The more he holds himself, the more the feminine can relax into her expression. But here's what must be understood. Women do not consciously decode all of this. They don't need to. The feminine is intuitive, feeling-based, sensitive to vibration. She may not understand why she feels safe around one man and unsettled around another. Why she feels electric tension with the one who says little, but stands like he's hiding a secret sun. Why her body leans toward the one whose gaze doesn't wander, who holds her attention without needing it. What she's sensing is the silent magnetism of a man who has not spilled himself thin. She's sensing a man who contains. This kind of man does not need to prove himself with status or seduction techniques. He doesn't need to show off his value. He is the value. He walks into a room and shifts the atmosphere. He is felt before he is seen and remembered long after he is gone. This is not charisma. It is the natural gravity of a man who has chosen not to waste what makes him divine. His sexual energy is no longer a fleeting release. It is a stored fire, a source of strength, a quiet storm behind his every action. Spiritual energy is not performance, it's resonance. There's a subtle but vital distinction between performance and presence. One is effortful, the other effortless. One seeks validation, the other expresses essence. When a man operates from a performative space, he is always trying to impress, to prove, to persuade. His energy reaches outward, constantly seeking a response, but true spiritual energy doesn't reach. It radiates. It doesn't seek, it resonates. It resonates. And this resonance is what women feel at the deepest level. The man who resonates doesn't need to announce himself. Its power is not in words, posturing, or pretense. It's in the way he walks, how he listens, the calm between his gestures. His frequency is stable, and that stability creates trust. He is not trying to be seen. He already sees himself. He's not building an identity to wear like armor. He's stripped down to something raw, real, and undeniable. This kind of authenticity can't be rehearsed. It's cultivated through self-awareness, discipline, and most of all, alignment. When your inner world is ordered, when your thoughts, emotions, and actions are congruent, you begin to vibrate with coherence. And coherence is rare. Most people live in inner contradiction, saying one thing, doing another, feeling something else entirely. That incoherence creates energetic dissonance. You can see it in the eyes, feel it in a handshake, sense it behind every smile that's trying too hard. Performance is always hiding something, an insecurity, a need, a wound. Resonance hides nothing. It is bare, open and secure in its own gravity. Women feel this difference immediately. They may not articulate it, but they can sense when a man is performing, and it repels them at a subtle level. No matter how charming the words, how confident the posture, if it lacks resonance, it doesn't land. Something feels a boff, even if they can't explain why. On the other hand, when a man is resonating from a place of stillness and inner truth, it bypasses logic and speaks directly to the nervous system. It soothes, it intrigues, it draws in. Semen retention plays a quiet but profound role in shifting you from performance to resonance. When you withhold your seed, you are no longer seeking external stimulation to feel alive. You are turning inward. That turning inward deepens your self-connection. It creates a well of energy that isn't leaking out through lust or approval-seeking behaviors. Instead, it collects within you and changes the way you move through the world. You stop looking for confirmation from others because you start feeling yourself more clearly. That clarity is what creates resonance. This energy doesn't demand attention, doesn't dominate a room, doesn't need to be loud. In fact, it's often quiet, but never weak. It holds a weight, a density that is unmistakable. People pause around. Women feel it in their body, like an ancient recognition of something stable, something trustworthy. Not because of anything you said, but because of how deeply you are being what you are. Resonance is rooted in embodiment. You are not trying to be masculine. You are masculine in a grounded and natural way. You are not mimicking leadership, you lead yourself. You don't need approval, but you're not closed off either. You're open, but not leaking, warm, but not needy. There's nothing exaggerated about you because there's nothing missing that you're trying to cover up. Your energy is whole, contained, and vibrating in tune with your purpose. This is the difference between signal and noise. Performance is noise. It's static, always shifting, always adjusting based on who's watching. Resonance is signal. It is steady, unwavering, and true regardless of the environment. It doesn't shout because it doesn't have to. It's a frequency, not a script. It's not in the clothes you wear or the words you choose, but in the integrity of your state. That integrity is rare, and because it's rare, it's powerful. And because it's powerful, it's felt, sometimes more powerfully in silence than in speech. The masculine as the silent mountain. There is a reason ancient myths, spiritual systems, and even the collective unconscious have long associated the mature masculine with mountains, still, grounded, vast, and immovable. The mountain doesn't chase the storm. It doesn't react to every gust of wind. It holds. It stands. It is. In the same way, the truly embodied man doesn't seek to control the chaos of life or the flow of emotion around him. He becomes the silent presence that allows those forces to exist without losing himself in them. This is not emotional detachment or apathy. This is rootedness, stillness, a form of presence so deep that it can contain volatility without becoming volatile. And for the feminine, which is inherently fluid, expressive, and ever-changing, that stillness is magnetic. It's not about dominance, it's about depth. The woman doesn't crave control from a man. What she unconsciously seeks is containment, not of her, but of himself. A man who cannot hold his center will always be pulled by the tides of the world around him. He will argue, defend, overreact, or withdraw. He will be swayed by opinions, manipulated by temptation, distracted by beauty. His energy disperses the moment pressure is applied. But the man who has done the inner work, who has confronted his impulses, who has refined his attention, who has built himself through self-discipline, he does not flinch when the winds rise. He becomes the mountain. His silence is not emptiness. It is strength that doesn't need to announce itself. Semen retention becomes a central practice in this transformation. When a man consistently retains and redirects his sexual energy, he trains himself not to respond impulsively to stimulation. He reconditions his nervous system to stay steady when desire arises. This carries far beyond sexuality. It builds the inner muscle of stillness, one that becomes evident in all areas of his life. The urge to chase, to impress, to dominate, to be seen, these compulsions begin to dissolve. What remains is presence, clean and unshakable. This silent presence is not passive, it's active stillness. It watches. It chooses. It holds the line. Women feel this presence as a kind of gravitational pull. They relax in its field, even if they test it at first, because feminine energy will test. Not to be cruel, but to feel what's real. She will stir emotion, offer beauty, spark drama, express chaos, not to be destructive, but to see. Will this man remain rooted, or will he break under the pressure? The man who remains, who breathes, who listens without losing himself, communicates something without saying a word. You can bring everything you are, and I will not collapse. That is the mountain, not emotionally distant, but unshaken. Not reactive, but responsive. He is not afraid of her intensity, because he has faced his own. His stillness doesn't suppress, it allows. And in that space, the feminine can finally rest, open, soften, and express without fear of instability. The more grounded a man becomes in himself, the more attuned he becomes to his purpose. His purpose becomes his axis, and everything else, pleasure, relationship, status, revolves around that center. He does not sacrifice himself to chase temporary fulfillment. He becomes the anchor, not only for himself, but for others. His calm is not situational, it's structural. And that calm creates safety, not through control, but through embodiment. To embody the mountain is not to be cold. It is to be stable. It is to be so connected to your own energy that you no longer seek completion through others. Semen retention, when practiced with awareness, helps crystallize this state. The same energy that once scattered you through compulsive desire is now solidifying into presence. Your body becomes heavier with purpose. Your eyes carry clarity. Your voice drops into the earth. You no longer chase polarity, you create it by the sheer weight of your being. Women sense that weight, not as pressure, but as safety, not as intensity, but as gravity. The feminine rises in the presence of grounded masculine energy, just as clouds form around the mountain's peak. Women read your shadow, not just your smile. You can dress well, say all the right words, smile at the right times, but if your inner world is fragmented, unsettled, or leaking with unconscious hunger, women will feel it. Not on the surface, not in a rational, articulated way, but in the body, in the nervous system, in the instinct. The feminine is intuitive, and it is drawn not just to your light, but to how well you've made peace with your dark, your shadow. The shadow is not something to be ashamed of. It's not just your anger, lust, or fear. It's everything about you that you've repressed, denied, or hidden in order to appear acceptable. The problem is, when you hide parts of yourself, they don't disappear, they leak. And this leakage is what women detect. You may be smiling, but there's tension behind it. You may sound confident, but there's a tremble underneath. You may look calm, but your eyes betray a quiet desperation. The feminine is not fooled by the mask. In fact, many women are more sensitive to energetic incongruence than they even realize. They may not consciously say, "This man hasn't integrated his shadow," but they'll feel unsafe around you without knowing why. They may lose attraction without being able to explain it. That's because what you hide creates static in your energy field, and static repels. True masculine power comes not from perfection, but from integration. When a man turns inward, confronts his darkness, owns his desires, and brings awareness to his compulsions, he becomes whole. And wholeness is what the feminine responds to, not just your strength, but your depth. Not just your light, but your willingness to walk through your own fire and not flinch. The man who can sit with his lust without acting on it, who can hold his anger without projecting it, who can feel his pain without collapsing into it. He emits a very different signal. That signal is clarity. And clarity is attractive. Semen retention becomes a mirror for the shadow. When you stop releasing your energy impulsively, your mind gets louder, desires rise. Fantasies intensify. You begin to confront the emotional and psychological states you once avoided through physical release. This is the real work, not just the physical retention, but the confrontation with the part of you that wants to escape discomfort. You begin to meet the version of yourself that feels unworthy without female attention, that seeks validation through sex, that fears rejection so deeply it hides behind bravado. But when you stay with yourself through those moments, when you contain your discomfort instead of numbing it, something shifts. You start to embody a calm that isn't forced, it's earned. Your eyes change, your posture changes, your energy no longer leaks with need or shame. You become a man who has been through his own underworld and made it out without losing his integrity. That man is rare, and women can feel the difference. There's a subtle power in a man who has nothing to hide, not because he's perfect, but because he's honest, with himself first. He's not afraid of his darkness, and so it doesn't control him. He's not driven by lust because he's befriended it. He's not reactive because he's seen the root of his pain and chosen to sit with it, instead of blame others for it. His very presence communicates, I've seen the parts of myself that most run from, and I remain unshaken. This depth creates safety. Not a surface-level safety, where everything is soft and sweet, but a primal safety. The kind that says, this man will not lie. He will not pretend. He will not fall apart when tested. Women sense this on a level that bypasses intellect. It shows up in how they breathe around you, how they speak to you, how open or guarded they become in your presence. Because what they are reading is not your charm, your income, or your performance. They are reading your integration. They are feeling whether you've met your own shadow and whether you've chosen to embrace it, not bury it. Spiritual energy is purpose in action. There is a quiet emptiness in a man who is not living with purpose. You can see it in his posture, in the way he speaks without direction, in how his energy floats without weight. He may appear fine on the outside, going through the motions, managing responsibilities, even achieving success, but something in his field feels unanchored. His spiritual energy has no aim. His masculine essence, disconnected from higher direction, begins to dissolve into distraction. This is where women feel disinterest. Not because he isn't attractive, but because he isn't going anywhere. Masculine energy is meant to penetrate, to create structure, to channel force into form. Without a mission, that energy stagnates. Sexual energy, particularly, becomes either suppressed or wasted. It's not just about holding your seed, it's about where that energy is going. Without vision, retention becomes tension. You're simply storing charge with no circuit. But when your actions align with purpose, that stored energy becomes fuel. It begins to radiate through your body, your voice, your decisions. You walk differently. You speak with direction. You move as if you belong to something greater than yourself. Women feel that movement. They may not know what your purpose is, but they feel when you are connected to it. It shows up in your boundaries, your focus, your discipline. You're no longer reactive to every attractive face, every opinion, every emotional wave. You are pulled by something deeper, something vertical. This creates a contrast in your energy that sharpens your masculine edge. You are no longer seeking pleasure, you are channeling it. You are no longer looking for escape, you are building something sacred from the ground up. Spiritual energy in this context is not passive or theoretical. It is not just meditation, mantras, or reading books on philosophy. It is doing the work and doing it daily. It is bringing order to your world, internally and externally. It's waking up with intention, creating with clarity, speaking with integrity, choosing with awareness. Every action becomes an extension of your alignment. Every step you take either strengthens your center or weakens it. Purpose is what makes your energy coherent, directional, and unmistakably felt. Semen retention becomes powerful not because you're holding back, but because you're redirecting forward. You're using your sexual charge to fuel your craft, your body, your service to the world. You become less interested in being entertained and more focused on building. You're no longer consuming life, you're creating it. This generative quality is deeply attractive to the feminine. It evokes trust, not because you say the right things, but because you live in a way that signals leadership, not over others, but over yourself. Purpose gives your presence weight. When a man walks into a room with purpose, he doesn't need to convince anyone of his value. His energy carries a silent authority. He's not here to impress, he's here to move forward. The feminine recognizes this and instinctively orients around it, not in submission, but in natural polarity. Her energy expands in the presence of your focus. Her chaos softens when it meets your structure. Her emotion flows when it's witnessed without judgment by your clarity, because your clarity is not theoretical, it's lived. It's demonstrated in your discipline, in the way you say no, in the way you make decisions without over-explaining. This is where sexual energy becomes sacred, not because it's withheld, but because it's directed. It no longer owns you. You own it, and that ownership is visible. You're not seduced by surface beauty because you're building something that matters. You don't chase because your energy is already being used at a higher level. You don't overinvest in what doesn't align because your time and energy are devoted to what does. Women feel that devotion. They feel when a man belongs to his path more than he belongs to their approval. And that devotion awakens something ancient in them, a recognition that this man is not just full of potential, but is already becoming what he was designed to be.